Welcome to the Versa Business Tips Podcast. I'm your host, founder and CEO of Versa Business Systems, Shaheen Mazloom. We're here with a very interesting guest today. 25 years in the press release space, helping business owners, entrepreneurs, social media moguls get press releases, TV, radio ads, online, newspapers, if they even exist anymore. You name it. Mickie Kennedy, how you doing today?
Good. Glad to be here.
Absolutely. Happy to have you, man. So you are the CEO of eReleases. Tell us a little bit more about yourself and what you guys do for those out there that don't know you.
Right. So eReleases is a press release distribution platform. We started a little over 25 years ago, me just with a database of journalists that I had reached out to, and they agreed that I could send them press releases through email. And
Nice.
15 years ago or so, PR Newswire approached us, and they liked what we were doing.
Yeah, I've worked with them before.
Yeah, we service mostly small businesses, entrepreneurs, startups, authors, people like that, and they recognized that they weren't serving that community, and their salespeople didn't really want to because their budgets are small and they weren't doing the volume of releases that their salespeople approach. So they thought that it would be good if we partnered, and all of our releases would go out through them. They were looking at like a local or city distribution. And I really pitched them that, these journalists are a lot of online players, and they're really looking for national news. So, they charge like $1,600 to move a press release nationally. And I really, wanted them to get that down so that our customers could afford it. And so all of our releases do go out nationally over PR Newswire today. There is some additional distributions that they get on top of that, but they don't pay anything close to $1,600. It's, closer to anywhere between $350 for a new customer special to as much as like $600-700 max for the average press release. So it's a huge savings for people who can then reach the Newswire. And the value of the Newswire is it's such a large repository of information and press releases specifically. And so journalists go to these places, they log in, and they look at very customized feeds based on what their beat is, what they cover, and they can really make it specific to them. So if, for example, they cover fashion, but not retail fashion, they can set up keywords to exclude. So if it mentions, retail or Target or places like that, you can just exclude those releases and they won't even see the headlines when they stream the headlines. And so that's the value of it. In the US, there's really a duopoly of press release newswires. It's PR Newswire and Business Wire. Despite that, there's dozens and dozens of other websites with wire in their names, but they're not true wires. They either want to be, or they're just pretending, and they're more in the game of press release syndication. And what happens with that is the press release gets replicated on a bunch of websites. And what I try to do is there's a little bit of that happens anytime you send a release out, but that's not the goal. We would rather have someone write an article about us using that press release, and we call that earned media. And so when you go on a real wire like PR Newswire or Business Wire, you're getting in front of journalists. When you use a service that's got wire in its name and it's not either of those two, more times than not, no journalist at all will ever see or consider that press release. It'll just get syndicated to a few websites, and that's it. So that's the real value of it. And people always ask me, isn't it better to pitch journalists directly? And I'm like, yes, absolutely is. I mean, that's why PR firms charge, $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 or more a year to work with. It's those relationships that they already have. But that being said, if you put your creative cap on and you really come up with compelling content, you can break in there and get earned media on your own, just using a lowly press release, paying $350 and clicking send. That's what I love to tell people about is, what are those opportunities? What are the things that would make a journalist pay attention and want to cover you?
Right, exactly. So my thought process in terms of, getting articles out there has always been to get more people in front of, in front of my business, potential lead generation, or to be able to use those articles to, to gain, what's it called? I'm drawing a blank. And credibility. Yes. Credibility, in your space or your business. Now you brought up something, getting in front of journalists. So I'm a small business owner and I'm, selling, I don't know, lawn care, or I'm selling, like us, we do business loans or credit card processing. What is the advantage of getting in front of a bunch of journalists, and then kind of what goes on from there?
Right. So the important thing about getting in front of a journalist is that ultimately they could write an article about you. And what happens when a journalist writes an article is, it's in front of their audience. And so when you write an article, write a press release and gets turned into an article, and let's say it goes to the Wall Street Journal or the New York Times, that can drive literally tens of thousands of people to your website and really get people to know about you, and can turn directly into customers, can turn directly into leads. And more importantly, you can then take the link to that article and share it with your leads. So you can also share it with your customers. And the reason for that is when people read an article, their advertising blinders don't come up. When I see an ad, I'm just like, sometimes I'll click through, but I'm already hovering over the back button, just trying to see what they're about. But, often you read an article, I read some blogs and some tech articles, and I see a really cool Kickstarter campaign. I'm like, wow, this person really, found a niche and they're trying to get it fulfilled. And wow, I hope that this they make it. And I click through and I'm like, oh man, it's only $70 to support them, and I'll get it going. And I click it and I bought it. And it's like that warm feeling happens with earned media because, that credibility that we mentioned. It's a signal of trust when a journalist writes about you. It's almost like social proof or an implied endorsement. Definitely. When you have that article and you have that rapport, you will find that the people will convert much easier. Coming from an article. It's
a lot more reputable too, rather than because I see these ads all the time. $3,000, we'll get you on the Wall Street Journal, we'll get you on Forbes and, Entrepreneur Magazine and this, that, and the other. And it's like, do people actually see that stuff? Is that just online? Like in the background, you've got some link and people don't really see it? Like, tell me a little bit about those, those companies that are pushing that stuff out there. Is that even real? Like what?
I don't think it is. There's a lot of people who make crazy promises in the syndication world. There's somebody right now that will put your press release on 1,000 websites. What they don't tell you is they own over 900 of them. They're just WordPress installations with no real page.
What is that guy Mayer, Alec Mayer, or whatever his name is?
I don't know Alec, but that's crazy. There's several people in the marketplace that do that. The thing is, those websites don't even get much traffic, and you're not going to get viewed by a lot of consumers, and you're certainly not going to get viewed by journalists, and no one's going to take that press release and then turn it into an article.
It's just a waste of money.
It really is. The thing about it is it's affordable. A lot of these things are like $100 to have your release syndicated.
Right. Yeah, I've seen some as low as like, $30, $40, get on 500 websites or, news forums, whatever. But it's like, it's still $50 that just is doing nothing for you.
Exactly. And the thing about it is I see people who come and use us and distribute releases. I would say a lot of them, I know they're not going to get earned media because the type of releases that they're giving to us. A lot of people find us when they've already got a release finished and they're looking for a press release submission or upload a press release and press release platforms and stuff like that. So they're already in buying mode. And my job is, after that release fails, because it usually does, is to educate them why it failed and the types of releases they should do or what they could have done to have made that release different. And I've tried to get in front of them when they're getting ready to pay me to send it and say, let's work on the release now. And they never want to do it. They feel like I'm just trying to upsell them. So I'm like, we will let this go out. And then after the fact, I'll tell them.
Well, I mean, my thing is I always want the expert to do it, right? Like that's what you do day in and day out. Why would I have either ChatGPT do it or me do it myself when I can tell you the goal that I have? Hey, here's the goal of this press release is to get more earned media, right? Like, what should I do? Should I tell my story? Should we do, like you're the expert, right? Now, so that brings me kind of to my next thing is, so somebody like me, I'm an immigrant, I came to this country, came from nothing. Is that the type of stuff that earns the media, telling your story? Or is it more of the success and the what you do for your clients, or is it kind of a mixture of all of that?
It's a mixture of it. I mean, if you ever, if you've watched Shark Tank, you know that one of the first things that they do is they tell their story. It might be how the company was created or the product came to light. It might be, there was a layoff and I had this hobby and I was like, I wonder if I could turn this into a business. Or, I lost my spouse and I have to now take care of the kids. And so I picked this up and I wanted to create a business. It's these things that give us a human interest element, and it really makes us feel and connect with them. And that can be very valuable. Sharing your story, your origin, whether it's, an obstacle or inspirational, just being vulnerable. But sometimes it can also just be silly. I've had some clients who just had like a really quirky, weird little idea and it germinated, and that's still a great story and it's entertaining. So having that in there, sometimes we put that towards the end of the release, sometimes in the about section, which we call the boilerplate, which usually is like about company, and it's a paragraph that gets recycled. But it's rarely the lead of the press release, but it certainly enhances it and gives it more depth and more of a element that they can incorporate into an article. What's the other thing that's going to be like the lead of the press release? And that varies. We get a lot of product launch press releases, which should be newsworthy. I mean, you're releasing a new product into the market,
especially if it's something cool or exciting, right?
Right. But a lot of the releases we get are, here's the new product, here's like a bullet list of features, and here's a page to buy. What they forgot is this is going to journalists, and journalists are story builders, and they like to build a story arc. There's not a lot of meat there for them to work with.
There's not a lot. I get that. So you got to remember when you're doing a press wire like this, that you are trying to sell a journalist on taking this story further to their audience. Is that
right? But
about right?
I consider journalists gatekeepers, and their biggest asset is their audience. And what are you giving them that will either entertain or educate, maybe even delight their audience? Just having a list of features isn't going to do it. However, if you had someone beta test that product, and let's say that they were, experiencing logistics expenses that were like 27% of their revenue, and they started using your solution, and they got that down to 19%. And what that, basically took them from a net profit of, say, 3% to 12%. That's substantial. And then have a quote by them, and all of a sudden having, here's the product, here's the company, this was their situation, this was their experience using it, here's a quote by them, and now we have a few features listed and the link. Those are a lot more things for journalists to build a story arc. So sometimes what we want, which is just to, click send and get a lot of traffic and money, you have to go back and maybe almost reverse engineer what you wrote to try and put those elements in there. And if you have those elements and a journalist is looking at two product launch releases in the same industry, they're going to gravitate to the one that has that use case study and that great quote from that person who used your product, because they know that builds out more of a educational and entertaining element for their audience. And another little
For sure.
tip is images. Journalists are putting a lot of stuff online. Most articles go there now, even when they do print. And so having a really good couple of photos, they know will enhance the experience of any of their website visitors. And, a lot of people,
Right.
especially small businesses, like to appear more professional than they are and have everything like perfectly professionally photographed. But I'll tell you, journalists know this. The images that their audience resonates with most are usually just candid shots. A customer using your
Authentic.
product in a
Yeah.
warehouse,
Candid, authentic.
with the
Yeah.
coffee cups in the back and the mess on the desk. Go ahead, take those pictures
Yeah.
of your real life customers, your real life product or service,
Yeah.
and incorporate that
It's
and
just
add
the
it.
authenticity of it,
Absolutely.
right? Yeah. Yeah. Very cool. So now we were talking earlier, being able to do like a press wire like this, so just to tell you, one of my dreams is to be on the Today Show, to tell my story, to inspire as many people as I can, right? My story's pretty wild how I got from where I was to where we are now. And, um, so I started, I don't know if you've heard of Gary Cox, but I met with Gary Cox. He's done a lot of TV stuff. He's done a lot of press. And when I met with him, I asked him, I said, how did you get on TV? How did you get these shows? How did you get these interviews? And he's like, being relentless, blow them up, blow them up. So I tried that. Well, with the Today Show, it's not as easy. So I got a bunch of phone numbers, I got a bunch of emails, and for months I'm boom, boom, hitting the phone, leaving voicemails, sending emails. Never got a response. I'm like, all right, well, maybe I got to change my strategy. But my question is this. Is it a possibility that you are the right candidate for somebody to be on the Today Show, and a press wire like this is how somebody gets there, or is that not really realistic? Like, give me some example of like an end game of a super successful press wire.
Right. I do about 10 to 14,000 press releases a year. So
Wow.
we see a lot of successes. The Today Show specifically, we have a customer named Greg Rapp who does menu engineers. And basically what he does is he takes your existing menu and he knows that he can just move stuff around on the menu. And, a restaurant can go from like, a 7% profitability rate to a 21% profitability rate just by re-engineering the menu. We're not talking
Wow.
about changing
Right.
prices. We normally, when we go to a menu, we get lost. And
Right.
he's like, there are places that people gravitate to on
Right.
a menu. There is certain headers that you could use, like, chef specialties or things like that make people feel very comfortable that
Right.
I'm going to have a good experience if I try some of these. And he has a waiting list of people that want to use his boot camp.
I
And
bet.
he got on the Today Show.
That's
And so,
super. I mean, that's impressive, and that's really cool, right?
right.
So it
And
is a
so I think
possibility.
that being newsworthy in the way that he kind of is, because
Right.
that's really interesting. It
Oh,
seems
for
like this
sure.
guy's like a mad scientist of the
Right, right.
menu. And it's like people would find that intriguing. So,
Right.
uh, you know, I think that there are ways in which you can go and, try different approaches to be newsworthy.
Yeah.
I don't know necessarily that we're going to get you on the Today Show. I
Right, of
think that
course.
it's better to sort of plan to be as newsworthy as you can and open to as much, and just see what happens.
Yeah,
We
for
we have
sure.
one client called Celebra Ducks, and they make funny little rubber ducks, and they make
Uh-huh.
them with historical figures like a Shakespeare version and stuff like that. But they've also
Right.
got licensed for some celebrities and other kinds of things. And they've been on the Tonight Show, been in CNN. They were on Late Night with Conan O'Brien back when he had his show on regular
Wow.
TV. So he did really well because he has a good prop. it looks good on TV,
Yeah.
all of these fun little
Yeah,
things.
for sure.
And no one else is making things just like that, because what's the market for Shakespeare ducks? It's not substantial, but it is fun. And if you have like someone who's a professor or a family friend who just graduated with a literary degree, it's a fun little gift, and it's one of those things. So I think his approach was, let's just see what we can do by being as newsworthy and forward facing as possible, and he's done extremely well. And that is one of the things that I do with my customers once they get on my email list, is provide education for them. And I have a free masterclass where I take people through all of the strategic types of releases that anyone could do. And these are the ones that get results. They are much more likely to get media attention. And, if any of your listeners are interested, like I said, it's completely free. It's at eReleases.com/plan, PLAN. And it's an hour-long video class, because I know that I've bought my share of 20-hour classes and never watched them. So I tried to make it as relatable and easy. And if you know nothing about
I'll make sure to put the link in the description.
If you know nothing about PR, I guarantee you, if you go through that, you're going to have probably have written down a dozen ideas for you. One of those things that is thinking outside the box is do a survey or study within your industry. What you don't realize is there's no rules on who can do a survey. And by you doing it, you've made yourself the expert in your industry. And it's really as easy as asking 16 questions on SurveyMonkey. I like 4 questions per page. Ask questions that are very timely and relevant right now. We're, I don't know, year or so out of a pandemic, but there's still a lot of people dealing with culture issues, people wanting to work from home, all these things. So what's going on in your industry? Look at when people go to conferences, what is it they sit around and talk about? Like, hey, have you noticed that, net 90 is now turning into net 120? Everybody's slow paying. Do you think that money's drying up in the industry? It could be. And potentially, if you ask people in the market, are they experiencing something like that? Then that's a good indicator. So really just ask those kinds of questions, be really creative. And then when you get the results, pick 1 or 2 of those questions and make a press release about it. What were the results? Pick one that was often surprising. You don't have a Rolodex. I know most people don't have a Rolodex of their competitors in the marketplace, but all you have to do is take that link to the survey and go to a small or independent trade association in your industry. And the first thing I have someone tell me is, I was on a PR podcast, and they're like, well, in the PR world, Mickie, there's only PRSA, Public Relations Society of America. And I said, would you be surprised to know there's over 470 PR trade associations in the United States? And she says, I don't believe you. So I looked it up with her and proved it. Now, some are really small. Like some of them are only for, PR professionals who are of a particular race, or PR professionals in the mid-Atlantic. But there are some that, specialize in industries. There might be an industry that you're in, like the e-commerce PR professionals. And so you're just going to look for one that has I usually say 500-600 members or more, and just reach out to that trade association and say, hey, I'm doing a survey. Would you send this link to your members? And in exchange for that, I will mention you in the press release I'll be issuing over the wire. These small independent trade associations, no one knows they exist. Just like she pointed out. So they will often do this.
Exactly.
My success rate is almost 80% with the first one that we ask. And then they send it out. I sometimes go back to them and say, hey, I appreciate you sending it out, but we only got 60 responses. Media really likes to have at least 100 responses in a survey. So could you maybe send it out by itself in an email, or also maybe add your social media, the link on social media with a little pitch? And often they will, because they don't want you to fail or have to move on to a different trade association. And then you like I said, you pick the one aha moment. What was the biggest surprise there? Build a page on your website and put all the questions and answers, the responses, because a journalist will go there and hunt for another story. Like, hey, that was interesting, but what else did this survey, find out? Every time one of my customers does this, you're going to have a great quote by you because you're the expert of why you felt the numbers skewed that way. So you've really just put yourself as like such a big authority in your industry there. And every time my customers have done this, the least we've ever got are 4 articles written about them. They're usually industry articles, trade publications.
Wow.
Sometimes if it's a interesting enough one, we've gotten major papers to pick it up as well. But the average result is between 8 and 14 articles, earned media articles. And I'm always proud when people go through the effort and do this. It's not crazy. The process I went through is pretty straightforward. Don't overthink it. Try it, and you will get pickup. I've never had that fail. You just have to spend a little time making sure you're asking the right questions. Like, what are some fun, interesting questions that are timely right now that's going on in your industry?
Now, so, originally when we first started speaking about, doing a press wire, it was like, $350 to $500, something like that. Now, if we want you guys to write the articles and obviously it would be coincide with us, right? We'd have to talk and go over all our information so you can figure out what's the best thing to do. What does that look like? A kind of done for you press wire? Is that going to be thousands and thousands like it would be for a PR firm? Or
no, we just charge $300 for writing a release on top of the distribution. So it's very affordable. And I tell people, if you're really uncomfortable, we can write the first release. But if you've ever looked at a press release, they're very simple. They're not complex pieces. They're supposed to be written at an 8th grade level. You're really just providing the facts and data for a journalist to take it, and then they write it. And, the pun headlines and all that, save that for the journalist, save that for the New York Post. You're just going to stick to the facts and be very straightforward, but you're going to lead with the facts, and you're going to have an amazing quote in there, because an amazing quote can save a mediocre press release. If a journalist is looking at 2 press releases that are pretty mediocre and they see a quote that's like, whoa, that's an amazing quote, they will gravitate to that because they know they can build a good article around an amazing quote. And when I say amazing quote, like, what do you mean, Mickie? And I'm telling you, it's a little subjective. It could be like a big claim, like we want to put depression counseling in the hands of every American. Like a big claim, or a bit, something that's like, whoa, makes people like, whoa. Right, but it could also just be something that you say that you've paraphrased it so powerfully and succinct that you just nailed it. And if a journalist was to paraphrase that, it wouldn't be as strong as what you wrote. It could also be you're saying something contrarian. You're saying something where everybody in the industry seems to be saying, "Hey, we should all be going green," and you're just like, I don't think so. Here is some strong evidence that, in particular, say electric cars, that, the mining of these minerals is not environmentally sound.
Environment. Well, yeah, exactly. Something that just makes people, like,
and electric cars, when they catch on fire in an accident,
I totally get what you mean.
30,000, 50,000 gallons of water to put it out. That's not good for the environment. So if you come across as level-headed, but you position some cons or negatives about something, that's also great. And so journalists love that. And a good thing about being a contrarian on any issue is whenever a journalist writes about it, they often only have one side. And that's usually what the industry is pushing. Being fair and balanced, they do look around and say, has anybody raised their hand and put out some contrarian viewpoints on this? And if they see you out there raising your hand, positioning all these contrarian viewpoints, they will plug you into that article. So I often tell people that by being a contrarian, you can find yourself being plugged into lots of little articles that you never even knew that you stood a chance of getting in.
That's so cool, man. This stuff is fascinating. So everything that you talked about today, I knew nothing about, to be completely honest. And I've done a lot of different articles. I mean, I've done TV interviews. I wouldn't say I'm a novice when it comes to press, but I knew absolutely nothing about what you're talking about. And to be honest, I cannot wait to talk offline, and so we can get started on my press wire, because I think it's a no-brainer. I mean, I don't think what do you got to lose, really? The best case scenario,
Sure.
you get in front of a few journalists, right?
Right.
That's awesome,
Right.
man. Thank you so much for joining us today, Mickie. Again, that link, if people want to reach out to you, they want to join your mastermind, they want to get on your email list, what was that link again?
So the website's eReleases.com, but that free masterclass is at eReleases.com/plan, PLAN. And all you have to do is
Perfect.
just put your email in and you'll have access to everything for free.
Awesome, man. Greatly appreciated. I'm sure a lot of our viewers and listeners will appreciate the same thing. And I'm looking forward to talking to you again soon. And I can't wait to start telling people about what you did with my press wire. I'm getting excited about it. So I'll be contacting you probably Tuesday once I get back from the holiday weekend.
Perfect.